Hello, Dr. King. Hello, Will. Hello, any other viewers that are watching this. My name is Ambrosio Sanchez, and I'm one of the lead designers for the prosthetic hand for my group, BME 60C, and we're called the Flopping Floppers. So here I'm going to start off by showing you guys how to design the palm for our prosthetic hand. This is what the final result looks like. And before we begin, we want to set our units to inches. Now, for our first sketch, we start from the top plane, and you want to create a center rectangle. After you've done that, you want to dimension the sides to 4 inches, to a 4x4 inches, and then I created a spline line. Spline, and I started it here at this edge, the right edge. Then I made it 0.85. Then I clicked next here, 0.85 away from the center, and then I finally connected it over here to the left edge. And what this does is basically curves the palm so that it makes it look a little bit more like a real hand, and that way we can add our fingers. Alright, and these are also the other dimensions that you should use for the spline. After you have your whole your sketch fully defined, you want to extrude in the features tab over here, and you want to extrude it upwards for 1.5 inches. So you can get this box here. Afterwards, so now we're going to move on to the finger extrusions. So first we start off by making the thumb. Again, we have this box here, and you want to just dimension, you want to create lines in a diagonal similar to how it is here. I can zoom in. Here are the dimensions, so you can get a better look at that. And the diagonal line is 50 degrees from this right edge of the palm. And these two lines over here are both parallel. And again, other dimensions here. On your sketch, you want to extrude it downwards for 1.65 inches. Now that is more than what we did for the original palm, but that's because later on we'll include more curvature to the palm to make it look more natural. After you've done that, you want to create a reference plane. So you do that by clicking here, click a reference plane, and you want to use this face of the right side of the thumb extrusion as your reference point. And what that's going to allow us to do is use that so that we can make a cut and to curve this thumb extrusion a bit more so that it's not so cubical. And here, okay. Okay, and the way you want to cut is you want to click on the plane that was there, and you want to make these lines here. So you click on the plane, the reference plane that you made earlier, and then you make these lines here. So you make this. Now to fully define the sketch and close it off, you want to use your 3-point arc and bring it from this left upper edge to the bottom to almost. Again, the dimensions are here, but you want to just bring it here to the right edge. And then you want to give it a radius of 4.03. And that will fully define these over here, this top part and this bottom part. Afterwards, you want to just create the cut, and you want to do the cut just for 1 inch, and you want to go to 1 inch so it doesn't go through the palm itself, and just enough to cover both edges on the thumb extrusion. Alright, so after you've made the cut, your palm should look something like this. Okay, I know it looks very cubical right now, but don't worry, it'll change up in a few. Afterwards, we're going to get started on the curvature of the palm, of the underside of the palm. So we're going to get started with that sketch. And you want to go to the left side plane, the left plane. And again, here are the dimensions for you to follow. I use lines here and then a spline here. After you fully define your sketch, you want to extrude it outwards, and you want to extrude it for 4 inches, which is the length of the palm. Then after you've done that, now we're going to get started with the other finger extrusions. So we're going to go to our sketches. We're going to go to the top plane again. Fully define those. You want to extrude the base, extrude the feature, and you can extrude it for 1.5 inches downwards. And again, that's the height of the palm. After you've done that, you want to go ahead and make your cuts to each of the finger extrusions. So what this does is basically shapes them in a way that allows for rotational movement. Alright, so this is what the fingers should look like once they've been cut. I'll show you the dimensions right now. So this is what the dimensions are. You want to just make lines along the extrusions, and this line over here should define the entire shape. And yeah, you want to make this for every finger, starting at every face. So after you've done on this face, you want to go to this face, then the next phase, and the next phase. Again, this is what it should look like. After you made the finger cuts, we're going to go ahead and make the additional cuts for our hose, so that way we can connect our finger joints onto these finger extrusions. And here are the dimensions. This is a simple circle with diameter of 0.25 inches. And you basically want to do this for every single, again, you extrude cut for 0.40 inches. And you want to do this for every finger extrusion. So here's the second one, here's the third one, as you can see here. Here's the fourth one. And of course, we also did it for the thumb. And that's right around here. Yep, okay. The hose into the finger extrusions. We want to keep giving our palm a natural look. So what I did was I created this. I added this fillet feature to the top left edge of the palm. Again, this gives it a rounded look. And the the radius I used was 0.3. So next, what I did was I created a sketch that allowed me to set reference points for some extrusions. And what these extrusions were going to do, they were basically pinholes for our strings to go through. And let me go ahead and show that right now. And it's basically a set of lines, just sets of lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4 lines here with the following dimensions. And what they, again, I'll show you in more detail what they were used for later on. So what I did was I created a reference plane using one of those lines. So for example, I created a reference plane using this line here at the pinky of the palm. And then using that plane, I added a sketch. I added a semicircle with the following dimensions. And what that allowed me to do was basically, again, these were extrusions for the strings to go through. After I made the extrusion, I followed it by a cut. And the cut is for the strings to go through. And the cut was, just through, or it was an arbitrary number, just enough so that it can go through the entire cylinder, through the entire semicircle. And that also has the following dimensions actually. Oh, the way that I made the cut was by adding another semicircle within the existing semicircle with the following dimensions. And then I went ahead and extruded that cut. Then I went ahead and did that for the rest of the fingers. Again, I used those lines as reference points to create more planes. Here's a second plane. Then again, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. So I created the extrusion here. Extrusion here. Extrusion here. Again, they have the same dimensions as the original one. And I also did it for the thumb. And I did that by, again, creating a sketch that allowed me to set a reference point for the reference plane. So then I added the reference plane, followed by the extrusion, followed by the extrusion, and the cut, of course. So after I made those first 5, alright, so now your palm should be looking something like this. After I made those first 5 string holders, I added even more. I did this by first adding 5 little cubes on top of it. So again, from the top view, from the top plane, I went ahead and created these sketches here. And I used this center block as the reference for the rest. And I kind of just almost arbitrarily placed them in a circular fashion. And these are the following dimensions. As you can see, these two are mirrors of these two over here, or vice versa. And I know that I think a bunch of these parts could have probably been created a little better. But at the time that we made these, I was still an amateur at SolidWorks. It was around week 4, week 3 maybe, I don't even know. So yeah, I apologize for some of them being undefined and kind of almost arbitrarily being placed. So after I added those cubes on top of the palm, I go in ahead and created cuts so that it can shape those cubes into more cylinders or more half circles. And here are the dimensions for those cuts. So after I made the cubes, I went ahead and created these cuts on the cubes to give them a cylindrical half circle look, again similar to the ones up here. And I went ahead and did that for each one. I also went ahead and extruded a cut in the middle as well. Again, very similar to the original ones, just a bit bigger. Okay, now your palm should be looking something like this. Again, these are holders for the string so that they can pass through it and eventually lead into the fingers. Afterwards, I went ahead and used a fillet for the edges of the thumb extrusion. So again, just to give it that more natural look. So the next thing I did was I added a cut into the thumb extrusion, and I did it by creating this triangular shape with the following dimensions. Again, this cut was to allow movement for the thumb joint. And these are the dimensions. Then I went ahead and did the cut, and it should look something like this now. Okay. Then I went ahead and used the fillet feature on some more of the edges on the thumb extrusion. And I also went ahead and did that for the finger extrusions over here. Again, this gives it a rounded look and a more natural feel. You want to use a radius of 0.20 inches for those fillets. Alright, and so next what I did was I went ahead and created a cut in the upper side of the palm, in the lower side of the palm. And I did this by going to the right or to the front plane and creating a square with the following dimensions. That was fully defined. I went ahead and cut it, and basically it produced this result here. Now the cut extrusion was only done for 0.50 inches. Again, and it cut out the inside of the palm. After that, I went ahead and used the fillet features a couple more times just to give certain edges some more rounded looks. Okay. This gave this bottom portion a rounded look again. Radius of 0.30, 0.30. Some more fillet. Again, 0.03 or 0.30. And this is done near the knuckle area. Alright, and so next what I did was I went ahead and created these extrusions from the rear side of the palm so that we can have connections to the wrist. And again, here are the dimensions for that. After we created it, we did a mid-plane extrusion. After we fully defined our sketch, we went ahead and created an extrusion in 2 directions. So in one direction, it went for 0.30 inches, and in the other direction, it went from 0.35 inches. And we went ahead and did the same thing on this other side over here of the palm. After we created those extrusions, we went ahead and created holes into these extrusions. Again, these are going to be used for attaching it to the wrist. And these are the dimensions for those holes. Again, diameter of 0.025 inches or 1/4 inch. Then you make the cut extrusion through all in this case. And last but not least, I use the fillet feature to round off these edges here on the inside of it. And ta-da! This was the final version of the palm that we used and printed out.